Hey.
Hi.
What you doing?
I'm looking at the new card game that my parents bought me. It's P.L.B.GOV, the Second Industrial Revolution card game.
Okay, what does that stand for?
It stands for the four main spheres of influence during the Second Industrial Revolution: public opinion, labor force, big business, and government.
Okay, how do you play?
Labor, big business, and government are your character cards that you can actually, use to fight. But the public cards, the public opinion cards are one-time use cards. They can have negative effects on your public opinion or your capability. So they can hurt your health or your power, basically.
Oh, okay.
And the positive ones do the opposite. They heal it. You can also have special public opinion cards like social Darwinism, which is pro-business, because in the Second Industrial Revolution, social Darwinism was a belief that the wealth naturally rose to those fittest to have it. And ergo, business, they have more wealth. There's also consumerism, another pro-business card, which, is basically just people want to buy things, so they're more likely to like business. There's another then there's one that's against business, like the concentration of wealth. When people heard about how the wealth was concentrated in the hands of, such a small amount of Americans and that the rest were poor, it turned them against business slightly. And then, of course, there are the three main character ones, which are labor, big business, and government, to reiterate my point. Smart words. Within the three main segments, there are normal character cards, like in labor, you'll just have laborers and labor unions. In government, you'll just have government workers, and in big business, you'll have business cards. But in addition to that, you also have special characters. So I'll explain some of those to you. Let's get government out of the way first, because it's my least favorite and, in my opinion, the lamest of all cards. There's only two main things that you need to know about government, and it's not even the actual characters, but just special moves that you can use in conjunction with even your plain workers. So one of them is probably the most useless card in the deck, and it's the Sherman Antitrust Act card, which is basically like Magikarp Splash in Pokemon. It does nothing, just like how in the Second Industrial Revolution, the Sherman Antitrust Act didn't please businesses or laborers because it was weak on business, but it didn't help, it was weak on business, and business didn't like the fact that government was trying to control them. So the card basically is null and void. It does nothing, but you do have to use it within the first 3 turns of drawing it from your deck. So you have to use it. It's basically just skipping your own turn. And after that, there's just laissez-faire capitalism, which is hands-off government. It's basically a cop-out card for your government character to flee when confronted with business or laborers. They just say, they're just like, we're hands-off in capitalism, we're not going to do this, and they leave. So those are really the only 2 cards you need to know about in government. One, because it'll screw you over in the game, and the other one, because it gets you out of playing with government cards, because they're weak.
Okay.
The next one that I'll tell you about is actually my favorite, which is big business. They're the main powerhouse cards. They have the best powers, the best characters. Basically, when focusing on the Second Industrial Revolution, this card game made business the best, because that's what it was in the Second Industrial Revolution. It was the powerhouse. It lorded over the laborers and the public, and it had the government in its pocket. So the main business ones that you need to know about are Rockefeller, who was the owner of Standard Oil Trust, and his main power is he has a special move that he can use, like all character cards do, and it's horizontal integration, which in real life would be that he takes over other companies that are within the same job as him, so that no one else can, no one has the better business than he does. But in the game, it's just an anti-business card. It hits smaller businesses than him. So anyone that's not another main character in business will be automatically The opposite of Rockefeller would be Carnegie, who had vertical integration. So he took every stage of the business. He took over, like, the coal miners, the railroad business that brought stuff to him, that brought the natural materials to him. And what's important to know the difference between vertical integration and horizontal integration is that there will be cards within the business cards that are susceptible to vertical integration, and some are susceptible to horizontal integration, and that will be noted on the cards. So don't try and use Carnegie against a horizontal integration person. Okay, but they also have, these two are the most powerful cards because they also, instead of just having an anti-business one, they also have some that help their public opinion. Carnegie was a philanthropist, so one of his special powers in the game is philanthropy, and it'll boost his public opinion back up. Rockefeller always pulls the Gospel of Wealth card, which is another way to boost your public opinion by saying that, by appealing to people's Christianity at this point in time and saying, you know, I have the wealth because God wants me to have the wealth. Okay. Other important characters in big business include Jay Gould and J.P. Morgan. Jay Gould is important because he has the power of watering stock, which is basically cheating the public out of their money. But he can use this one against labor fighting cards. And what you do is what they would do to water stock is take the stock and inflate its value before selling it off. So they sold it off at a value that it wasn't really worth, and that's his power. J.P. Morgan is important because he has the one healing card that can work in conjunction with one of your other characters. J.P. Morgan can give out loans to heal the government. He doesn't give loans to the public or other businesses, just the government. He heals the government. He's a very important railroad business tycoon.
All right, can you speed this up a little bit?
Okay, yeah. I'll just tell you about the characters and not their abilities themselves. Important characters in labor are Eugene V. Debs, the leader of the American Railroad Union, the Knights of Labor Party, which advocated workers' cooperatives and were against child labor. Then there's also Terrence V. Powderly, who is the leader of the Knights of Labor. So if you have both of those cards down at the same time, they get doubled in power. There's also the American Federation of Labor and Samuel Gompers, who are important cards to a lesser extent. After that, the most important things are just event cards. Now, in event cards, the most important one right now...
The most important one is...
It strikes, but I wasn't saying things correctly. Okay. After that, the important cards are event cards, which you can play to change the effect of certain abilities and cards, and also to open up new abilities to you. I don't want those. Where's my P.L.B.GOV card? There it is. Anyway, the most... Sorry. The most important event card is the strike card. Well, our strike cards. There are different strike cards that can affect the outcome based on what happened in the strikes themselves. So you have to read on the card to see what their effects are. But strike cards include the railroad strike of 1877, the Homestead strikes of 1892, and the Pullman strike of 1894. Now, what these strikes do, they give... So during strike events give big business the ability to use power cards such as scabs and lockouts. Now, scabs were strike breakers. They were people who would go in while a union was striking and take the job. So in the game, what scab cards do is it makes the laborers actually hurt the big business less, because now the laborers don't really have any say in what's going on in the business because they're being pushed out. But if you have a lockout card, and you have to play it the same turn that the strike card is turned over, but if you do, then the strike never happens in the first place, because lockouts were used to close down the factories before laborers could get a strike organized. Okay. Also what happens is that laborers and labor unions have increased hit points because they're bolstered by the fact that they're in a community together fighting against the, bad guys, big business. Strikes also give the government the ability to use the power-up card Injunction, which is just a... It doesn't really explain it very well. All it says is obtaining court injunctions against strikes.
The court can go against strikes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to, put together in my head. It also gives they also give the government the ability to use the power-up card Injunction, which is basically just making strikes illegal and helping the government to break up the strikes. It also does a strike against me. Okay. Let's see. Then, if it's a strike in which government force was used, as in they sent the troops in the which one is it? Pullman.
Is it the Pullman? Isn't that just where they boycotted his train?
Well, yeah, but then the government sent in troops.
And then they did a thing where, hey, you can't do that because it messes with the mail.
Okay, yeah. If it's a strike where government force was used to stop the strike, as in the Pullman strike where President Cleveland sent in the army to break up the strike, then if you have a government card that's capable of using military force, which it'll note that on the card, it'll tell you if your government worker is capable of using military force or not, then the laborers will automatically lose, but it has a recoil on public opinion. So it'll hurt your health a little bit, but it'll immediately get rid of any laborers on the board, including your own if they're on your side. So use this sparingly. It also makes laborers and labor union cards more susceptible to negative public opinion cards, because the public didn't actually like strikes. They were against strikes, and they believed that it just held up big business. Other event cards include court cases such as In Re Debs, which gave employers a powerful tool to break strikes, and the Haymarket bombing, which was a bomb in Chicago that greatly reduced the popularity of the Knights of Labor. That's about all you need to know about the card game. So, do you want to play? Can we play?
Nah. Alright. Peace.
Well then, I just wasted all this time explaining it to you. Sounds lame.